Hello and welcome to The Last Word. The revelation that two of the country's best-known journalists could have acted as go-betweens or lobbyists has shaken the country. Although with a few exceptions the media has ignored the subject, it set the websites aflame. So today we ask, what do these revelations show? How should we judge the two journalists? And beyond that, the journalistic fraternity itself. I invited Vir Sanghvi and Barkha Dutt to join this discussion, but both declined. However, I have the editor of The Hindu, N. Ram, the editor of the Business Standard, Sanjaya Baru, the editor of Open magazine, which first published the transcripts, Manu Joseph, and the founding partner of Perfect Relations and former business journalist, Dilip Cherian. Manu Joseph, given that these were private conversations, and second, that there is a Supreme Court advisory against making such conversations public, why did you publish the transcripts?
Considering the extraordinary nature of this story, we knew that we were right in publishing this story. And also we had information that very soon these transcripts are going to enter public domain in the form of YouTube or WikiLeaks or other websites. So we took an editorial call on that.
Secondly, should you have given the people concerned a right of response at the same time as publishing their conversations?
Yes, it's a complicated issue. We had discussed that internally because the people who are involved, Barkha Dutt and Vir Sanghvi, very senior journalists, and we have a lot of professional respect for them. But there are other people involved in the transcripts. Some of them may not fully understand what journalistic process is or what journalistic ethics are. So I was very sure that if the word of the story got out, there would be enormous pressure on us to kill the story.
In other words, if you had given or offered a right of response, you might have had an injunction taken out stopping the story.
That too, yes.
Gentlemen, let's first focus on Vir Sanghvi and Barkha Dutt. Sanjaya Baru, does the content of their conversation suggest a higher or greater public purpose which justifies breaching their privacy?
Well, any breaching of privacy is part of journalism. We are all the time trying to find out what people are up to. But I think the question you asked is a valid one, which is that we never publish anything without those who are being referred to are made aware of what is being published, and their viewpoint should be reflected. So I think legitimately the view of those people who have been mentioned should have been carried. Certainly there are many people whose views have, whose conversations have been printed in these magazines who have not said anything particularly damaging, and I think their reputations may have been affected as a result of getting clubbed.
Let's come to the others later. Let's for now stick to Vir Sanghvi and Barkha Dutt. Are you therefore disputing the point that Manu Joseph made, that if he had given Vir and Barkha a right of response, they might have moved an injunction and stopped the publication altogether? Are you disputing that?
Yes, I think I would insist as an editor that whatever we publish, the people who we refer to should not find it a surprise in the morning. They should know that we are publishing, and we have every right to publish.
Alright. Enram, let's focus a little in depth on those conversations that Vir and Barkha had. It's quite clear that they had agreed to carry messages from Nira Radia to the Congress party. Now, as you view it, were they simply acting as couriers and go-betweens, or would you say that they were behaving like lobbyists? Which would it be?
I think they are out of line in those conversations, and I'm glad that because the media also need to be put under the searchlight. So I fully agree with Manu Joseph and also Vinod Mehta that it had to be published. But yes, I think it's out of line, because here was about portfolio allocation and about a gas price dispute. And in both cases, regardless of what they did, I think it is embarrassing. It was wrong. It is not professional on the part of those journalists to have done that. And hats off for those who bring it into the public realm.
So would you also
That's my response.
Would you also agree with Manu Joseph that if he had given these two a right of response, there was the risk that they would have moved an injunction and stopped publication, and that in a sense justifies his going ahead without forewarning them?
There would have been no injunction. There's no prior restraint. Courts rarely give it in India, unlike the UK. You know that, Karan. But yes, I don't think if you're doing an expose, there is time, and it doesn't happen at all. We did that at Bofors. We didn't have to consult Vin Chadha before publishing it and so on. So I think it's typical of journalism. that you go ahead. In Watergate, they didn't give Nixon a chance to respond, or did they? This is of course much smaller because these journalists, as my friend put it, were playing the role of little leaguers.
Okay.
But I think it has affected their reputation. I don't want to judge them too harshly. They have a right to reply.
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. I'll come back to the impact it's had on their reputation in a moment's time, but it's a very telling point you make when you compare Manu Joseph's behavior with the behavior of the media over Bofors or the American press over Watergate. Dilip Cherian, the first key question is, do you believe that they actually acted as couriers and go-betweens, or did they simply string Nira Radia along as a way of advancing a conversation and getting information? They claim that they were stringing her along. Do you believe that's true, or do you think they actually did what they committed themselves to do, which is carry messages?
I like Enram's comment of being out of line, but there's also a question of taking a line, hook, line and sinker. If there is proof of that, then in the case of written evidence or a television program which goes along the lines of anything that Radia is suggesting, then I would say that it is much more than going out of being out of line, and that there is a breach of journalistic ethics. As far as I can see, the evidence needs to be clear that there is a line that's taken and one that is actually then regurgitated in exact format. The second point that needs to be also taken into account is there an exchange of money or largesse of some kind?
Let me stop you there. I'll come to that issue in a moment's time. I want to take each of these issues one by one rather than collapse them together. So come back to the defense that Vir and Barkha have both made. They both claim that they were only stringing Nira Radia along. They were only appearing to agree to carry messages. In fact, they didn't. Do you believe that?
Having been a journalist for a good part of my life and having been on the other side and working on the media, I know that very often they try and extract information out of you and string you along for a certain period of time.